What would you do if you woke up one morning to find a giant red, "Private Property" sign staked into your own front lawn, without your permission? Not just a flimsy, store-bought sign either, but an official-looking, metal-plated notice drilled deep into the ground as if the land no longer belonged to you. Because that's exactly what I saw when I stepped outside on a quiet Saturday morning, coffee in hand, expecting to enjoy a peaceful weekend. Instead, my stomach dropped as I took in the sight before me. The sign was massive, bright red with bold white letters screaming, "Private Property, No Trespassing." A few feet away, another one stood tall, just as obnoxious, "Property of the Community HOA, Entry Prohibited." My blood pressure spiked. What the hell was this? There was no HOA here. That was one of the reasons I bought this house in the first place, to avoid the power-tripping nonsense of a homeowners association. And yet, here it was, plastered all over my lawn as if some faceless authority had just decided to annex part of my property. I stormed across the grass, the morning dew soaking into my slippers, and yanked at the metal post. It didn't budge. Someone had gone through the trouble of drilling it deep into the soil, ensuring it wasn't coming out easily. That's when I noticed something even more infuriating, ****, a letter taped to my mailbox. Tearing it open, I found a notice from none other than my insufferable neighbor, Karen Whitmore. "Dear homeowner," it began, oozing faux professionalism. "As part of our initiative to uphold community standards, certain land boundaries have been reassessed. Your property now partially falls under the jurisdiction of the HOA. Until legal clarification, modifications to the area are strictly prohibited. Fines may be imposed for non-compliance." I clenched my fists so hard the paper crumpled. There was no HOA here. Karen wasn't part of any real organization, she just liked to pretend she ran the neighborhood. But this? This was a new level of crazy. Not only had she taken it upon herself to redraw my property lines, but she had also issued a blatant threat. Fines? For what? For existing on my own land? The worst part was, she had clearly been planning this for a while. The heavy-duty metal posts, the official-looking signs, the bogus legal notice, Karen had gone all out to make it look legitimate. And the thought that she had probably stood here, smugly hammering these stakes into the ground, thinking she could get away with it, made my blood boil. I turned toward her house, my jaw clenched. Enough was enough. I didn't bother changing out of my slippers as I stomped across the street, straight to Karen's front door. Her house was as over-manicured as ever, perfectly trimmed hedges, symmetrical flower beds, and a porch so spotless it looked like it had never been walked on. The whole place radiated the same artificial control she tried to impose on everyone around her. I pounded on the door, the force rattling the decorative wreath hanging in the center. Within seconds, it swung open, and there she was, standing in a neatly pressed white blouse and pearl necklace, as if she had been expecting guests for afternoon tea. Her lips curled into a smug smile, the kind that made my fingers itch to crumple that fake notice and shove it right back in her mailbox, ***. "Oh, Ethan," she cooed, feigning surprise. "Good morning. How can I help you?" I held up the letter, shaking it for emphasis. "You want to tell me what the hell this is?" She tilted her head, all mock innocence, her eyes flicking lazily toward the crumpled paper in my grip. "Ah, I see you've received the notice. Good. It's all part of a community-wide initiative to ensure our neighborhood maintains a certain standard. We can't just let anyone do whatever they want with their property, can we?" I scoffed, barely able to contain my anger. "Karen, there is no HOA here. You don't have the authority to declare my land community property. That's not how this works." Karen let out a light, patronizing laugh, folding her arms as if she was explaining something to a particularly slow child. "Well, I did some research, and according to my findings, your lawn extends slightly beyond its original zoning specifications. That makes it subject to community regulation. Until things are properly settled, I thought it was best to establish order before things get out of hand. I took a step forward, pointing toward my yard. That's my property. You don't get to just slap a sign on it and make up rules. She sighed dramatically, shaking her head. Ethan, dear, I'm only trying to help. If you have an issue, I suggest you file a formal complaint. I clenched my jaw so hard I thought my teeth might crack. Oh, don't worry, I will. I turned on my heel and stormed back to my house, already pulling out my phone. If Karen wanted to play legal games, I was going to make sure she lost, ***. Within the hour, I had gathered every document proving my ownership, the deed, property tax statements, zoning records, anything that showed I legally owned every inch of my land. But I knew that wouldn't be enough. Karen was the kind of person who thrived on making people miserable until they gave in just to make her stop. I needed backup, ***. I called Rebecca Carter, my lawyer, and the moment I explained the situation, she let out a low chuckle. Oh, she's one of those, she muttered. I've handled plenty of fake HOA cases. This is going to be fun. Rebecca wasted no time. She instructed me to take photos of the signs, the drilled posts, and the letter Karen had stuffed into my mailbox. She also told me to head down to the county records office to get official confirmation that my land was, in fact, mine, ***. The trip was a formality. I already knew the answer. But the real shock came when the clerk, an older man with reading glasses perched on the edge of his nose, barely glanced at Karen's so-called documentation before chuckling. This isn't even an official claim, he said, flipping through the papers she had submitted. These are just Google Maps printouts and a fake HOA policy letter. She actually put up a sign because of this? I let out a long breath. Oh, trust me. That's not even the worst of it. The clerk shook his head. Well, legally speaking, she's the one trespassing. You can take this to the sheriff if she refuses to take the signs down. And that's exactly what I did. But Karen wasn't done. By the time I got back home, my phone was buzzing with text messages, from neighbors. Some were confused. Some were angry. But all of them were talking about the same thing. Karen had been making her rounds, knocking on doors, spreading her latest lie. She told them I was trying to illegally expand my property, that I had been caught violating zoning laws, and that my refusal to follow community standards was threatening the value of their homes, ***. And the worst part? Some of them believed her, ***. I could see it in the way a few of them stared as I walked back up my driveway. A few people whispered to each other, their expressions wary, as if I had suddenly turned into the villain of the neighborhood, ***. This wasn't just about my lawn anymore. Karen was trying to turn the entire neighborhood against me, ***. I gritted my teeth and checked my mailbox again, already expecting another ridiculous surprise, and sure enough, there it was. A brand new letter, this time claiming I owed $3,500 in overdue HOA fees, and that if I didn't comply, further legal action would be taken against me. The audacity of it all nearly made my vision blur with rage, ***. There was no HOA. There were no fees. But Karen was trying to fabricate an entire system of control, hoping I'd get so overwhelmed that I'd just give in, ***. That was her game, make life miserable, bury me in nonsense, and wait for me to crack. But if she thought I was just going to roll over, she had another thing coming. Because now, I wasn't just going to fight back, I was going to make sure she lost, ***. By the next morning, I was done playing defense. Karen wanted to drag me into a legal battle? Fine. I was ready, ***. Rebecca had already started filing the paperwork for a formal complaint, but before we could even push forward, Karen beat us to the punch. I stepped outside to check my mail and there it was, ***, a court summons. Karen was actually suing me. For a moment, I almost laughed at the sheer audacity of it all. She had already lost every argument, been proven wrong at the county records office, and was facing an official complaint for trespassing, yet here she was, doubling down. According to the lawsuit, I was encroaching on shared community land, and my refusal to acknowledge the HOA's jurisdiction was causing disharmony within the neighborhood. That last part almost made me choke on my coffee. Karen, the self-appointed dictator of the street, was suing me for ruining harmony? It would have been funny if it weren't so completely insane. I called Rebecca immediately. "You're not going to believe this," I said, relaying the details. She let out a low whistle. "Oh, I believe it. She's not just trying to win, she's trying to exhaust you. She's hoping you'll cave before this even gets to court." Yeah, well, she picked the wrong person to mess with. Rebecca was more than ready. She filed a counterclaim for harassment, defamation, and damages, making it clear that Karen's lawsuit was frivolous and a direct retaliation against my legal action. The court date was set within weeks, and the moment I walked into that courtroom, I could already tell Karen was out of her depth. She was seated at the plaintiff's table, back stiff, face smug, but there was something forced about her confidence. She had even managed to find a lawyer, a younger guy who looked barely out of law school, his stack of notes already disorganized. Meanwhile, Rebecca was the picture of calm, setting down our thick folder of official documents, *** deeds, tax records, zoning laws, everything proving I own my land outright, ***. The judge, a stern-looking woman in her 60s, wasted no time. She scanned the documents in front of her, then fixed Karen's lawyer with a hard stare. "Ms. Whitmore claims the defendant is encroaching on shared community land," she said. "Do you have official documentation to support this claim? Any property surveys? County records?" Karen's lawyer cleared his throat, already flustered. "Your Honor, my client has received multiple complaints from concerned neighbors, as well as documentation from online zoning." The judge cut him off. "I asked for official records. Not complaints. Not online maps. Legal documentation." Silence. Karen shifted in her seat, looking increasingly uncomfortable. Her lawyer scrambled, flipping through his papers as if the answer might magically appear. "Well, no, Your Honor, but we believe." "Belief is not evidence," the judge said. Unimpressed, she turned to Rebecca. "Does the defendant have documentation proving ownership of the disputed property?" Rebecca stood, her expression cool and professional. "Yes, Your Honor. Here is my client's official property deed, tax records, and a county-certified survey clearly marking the boundaries of his land. The so-called community space Ms. Whitmore refers to does not exist." She handed over the documents. The judge flipped through them, her face unreadable. Then, after a moment, she set them down and turned back to Karen. "Ms. Whitmore, you have no legal basis for this claim. This lawsuit is dismissed with prejudice." Karen's face turned bright red. But Your Honor, I was only trying to uphold the integrity of the community." The judge raised an eyebrow. "Ms. Whitmore, you are not a legal representative of this community, nor do you have any authority over the defendant's property. Furthermore, the defendant has filed a counterclaim against you for harassment, defamation, and damages." Karen's mouth dropped open, and for the first time, I saw a real panic flicker in her eyes. The judge continued, her tone firm. "Given the defendant's clear legal ownership, your unauthorized placement of signs, and the false fines you attempted to impose, I find in favor of Mr. Parker. You will be required to pay all of the defendant's legal fees and an additional $5,000 in damages." Karen looked like she had been physically struck. She turned to her lawyer, as if waiting for him to object, but he only slumped back in his seat, already defeated. The gavel came down. It was over, ***. As I left the courtroom, Rebecca smirked. "Told you we'd shut her down." "I owe you a drink," I said, shaking my head. She laughed. "Nah. Just keep me on speed dial. Something tells me Karen isn't done yet." And she was right. Because when I got home that evening, I found something waiting for me in my mailbox. Not another fake HOA fine. Not a letter of apology. No, Karen had upped the ante, asterisk asterisk. I unfolded the letter and felt my blood boil. It was from the IRS. A formal notice informing me that I had been reported for potential tax discrepancies. Karen had actually filed a false claim against me with the federal government. This wasn't just petty neighborhood drama anymore. This was war, asterisk asterisk. I stood in my driveway, gripping the IRS notice so tightly the paper nearly tore. Karen had already lost in court, been humiliated, and ordered to pay damages, yet she still refused to back down. Filing a false report with the IRS was a new low, even for her. She wasn't just trying to annoy me anymore, she was trying to ruin me. If this claim wasn't dismissed, I could be facing an audit, fines, or months of bureaucratic headaches. And that was exactly what she wanted, to drown me in so much legal trouble that I'd finally crack and give in to whatever delusional control she thought she had, asterisk asterisk. But Karen had underestimated me. I wasn't just going to fight back, I was going to make sure this time, she paid for it, asterisk asterisk. I immediately forwarded the letter to Rebecca. Within an hour, she called back, her voice sharp with irritation. I already contacted the IRS, she said. This complaint is completely fraudulent. It came from an anonymous tip, but let's be honest, who else would file it? Karen, I muttered, my jaw clenched. She's trying to make my life a living hell. Well, she just made a big mistake, Rebecca said. False reports to a federal agency? That's not just harassment, that's illegal. If she thought suing you was a bad idea, wait until she gets a call from a federal investigator. That was all I needed to hear. I filed an official harassment complaint against Karen, adding the IRS report as evidence. But I wasn't stopping there. Rebecca suggested we escalate things even further, filing a formal restraining order to legally bar Karen from setting foot near my property or contacting me in any way. If she so much as mailed me another fake fine, she'd be facing criminal charges, asterisk asterisk. But Karen wasn't done. That night, as I was reviewing my emails in my home office, a notification popped up from my security system, motion detected, front yard. At first, I assumed it was just a stray cat, but when I checked the live feed, my stomach twisted. There, crouching near my driveway, was Karen. She was dressed in dark clothing, clipboard in hand, as if she actually believed she could blend into the night like some low-budget cat burglar, asterisk asterisk. I zoomed in on the footage, pulse quickening. She wasn't just standing there, she was measuring. A tape measure stretched from my mailbox to the edge of my fence, and she was jotting down notes, asterisk asterisk. What the hell was she doing now? Then, she reached into a folder, pulled out a laminated sheet of paper, and staked it into the grass. Even through the grainy security feed, I could make out the bold heading, Notice of Property Violation. That was it. I grabbed my phone and dialed the sheriff's department. I have a trespasser on my property right now, I told the dispatcher, keeping my eyes locked on the screen. Her name is Karen Whitmore, and I have security footage of her breaking a restraining order. The dispatcher sighed, the kind of weary sound that told me I wasn't the first person to call about Karen. We'll send a unit right away, they said, asterisk asterisk. Keeping my phone in hand, I continued watching. Karen took a few more measurements, then adjusted the notice she had posted, stepping back to admire her work. The sheer nerve of it made my blood boil. After everything, after losing in court, after being fined, after being ordered to stop harassing me, she still thought she could get away with this, asterisk asterisk. But this time, she had made a fatal mistake. Less than 10 minutes later, flashing red and blue lights filled the street. A squad car rolled up, its headlights illuminating Karen just as she was preparing to leave. She froze, like a deer caught in the open, her entire body going rigid as the officer stepped out and shined a flashlight directly at her, ***. From my window, I could see their conversation unfold. Karen immediately started gesturing wildly toward my house, probably spinning some ridiculous excuse about how she was just ensuring compliance or upholding community standards. But the officer wasn't having it. He pointed at the sign she had posted, then at the measuring tape still dangling from her hand. I didn't need to hear the conversation to know exactly how it was going, ***. And then, the moment I had been waiting for, the officer reached for his handcuffs. Karen's entire body stiffened. She started shaking her head, clearly protesting, but the officer wasn't interested in hearing her excuses. After a few more tense words, he grabbed her wrist and secured the cuffs with a sharp metallic click, ***. She was being arrested. I stepped outside just in time to see her being guided toward the squad car. She whipped her head around, her eyes locking onto mine with pure, seething hatred. "This isn't over, Ethan," she shrieked. "You think you can do whatever you want? You don't own this neighborhood." I crossed my arms and smiled. "Neither do you." The officer acknowledged me with a nod. "She's being charged with criminal trespassing, harassment, and violating a court order," he said. "If she contacts you again, let us know immediately." Karen sputtered, her face turning an alarming shade of red. "I was just, ***. The car door slammed shut, cutting off her protests. The squad car pulled away, taking her with it, ***. I exhaled, a deep sense of relief washing over me. It was finally over, ***. Or so I thought. Because 2 days later, another letter arrived in my mailbox. Not from the HOA, not another fake fine, but from Karen's lawyer, ***. A cease and desist order. Even from jail, she was still trying to fight back. Even after being arrested for trespassing, even after violating a court order, even after being dragged away in handcuffs, Karen still refused to let go of her delusions of control. The cease and desist letter from her lawyer was almost laughable, filled with exaggerated legal jargon demanding that I immediately cease all defamation, harassment, and false claims against Karen. The irony of it all was staggering. She was the one who had trespassed, stalked my property, filed fake violations, and spread lies, yet now she was trying to paint herself as the victim. If she thought this was going to scare me, she was dead wrong. Rebecca barely needed a minute to go over the letter before dismissing it as meaningless. "This is a desperate attempt to intimidate you," she said, amused. "Karen's running out of options, and she knows it." But rather than simply ignoring it, Rebecca had a better idea. She filed a civil harassment restraining order against Karen, ensuring that any further contact, legal threats, or attempts to interfere with my property would result in immediate criminal penalties. Within days, the restraining order was served, and just like that, Karen's reign of terror over my property was legally over. Word spread quickly through the neighborhood. At first, the usual whispers circulated, but then, one by one, people started coming forward with their own Karen horror stories. One neighbor admitted that Karen had tried to fine them for planting non-regulation flowers in their yard. Another confessed that she had pressured them to sign fake HOA agreements she had printed herself, attempting to trick them into thinking she had real authority. Without the illusion of power to back her, Karen's grip on the neighborhood crumbled overnight. The same people who had once been too afraid to challenge her now saw her for what she truly was, a fraud, a bully, and a woman who had finally lost her manufactured empire. A month later, "For sale" sign appeared in front of Karen's house. Whether she had chosen to leave on her own or was drowning under legal fees and a destroyed reputation, I didn't know, and frankly, I didn't care. The day she packed up and left, I stood on my porch, watching as the moving truck pulled away, taking her with it. The neighborhood felt lighter, freer, like a storm had finally passed. My land, once claimed by her fake authority, now stood exactly as it should have, mine. After everything, the battle was exhausting, infuriating, and at times, unbelievable, but in the end, I stood my ground, and I won. Karen may have been gone, but stories like hers aren't uncommon. Some people will go to extreme lengths to control others, using fake authority, intimidation, and bureaucracy as their weapons. So tell me, have you ever felt powerless against an HOA, or a Karen in disguise? Share your experiences below, let's see who had it worse.